Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm fortunate to represent one of the most beautiful electorates anywhere in the world, and that electorate is under threat by a proposal to drill for oil in the Great Australian Bight. Now, can anyone in here imagine the sandy beaches from Port Wollonga down through Silver Sands to Maiponga Beach, Second Valley, Rapid Bay, Cape Jervis, or indeed the 550 kilometre coastline of Kangaroo Island covered in oil? Now, if drilling is to go ahead in the Great Australian Bight, that is a very real risk for our area. And quite rightly, many of the 24,000 people who I represent in this place are concerned about the proposal to drill in the Bight. You know, we hear from Equinor, the company from Norway that wants to do the drilling, that they have world's best practices and there'll be very small risk. Well, the thing that we say is that any risk is too great for this wonderful part of the world. 85% of the marine life that occurs in the Great Australian Bight and around Kangaroo Island, 85% does not feature in any waters anywhere else in the world. So that's the sort of significant, pristine environment that we're talking about. And people from all sides of politics in my area are becoming more and more outraged at the thought that this area could be under threat. We've had people from primary school kids at McLaren Vale, secondary school kids at Tatachilla Lutheran College, people who are in their 80s and 90s doing beautiful handwritten cards to me, asking me to go into bat and stand up for not just the environment, this pristine environment, but also for the 40,000 tourism jobs that we have here in South Australia, many of them largely focused around our clean and green image and our pristine coastline, and also the thousands of jobs in the fishing industry. I've been heartened in the past few weeks to have had a lot of emails and Facebook messages from people in Streaky Bay and Ceduna, in Port Lincoln and other parts of the Eyre Peninsula, where they're also very, very concerned about the prospect of drilling for oil in the Bight. Now, in a couple of hours from now, in Oslo, Norway, Equinor will be having their annual general meeting, where people will get to have their say, and I know there are some institutional investors who will be calling for Equinor not to go ahead with drilling in the Bight. Last week I met with the Secretary of State for Minerals and Petroleum in the Norwegian government. I met with him in Oslo and some other high-ranking officials from the government, and I want to thank the Prime Minister of Norway, Ms Erna Solberg, for organising that meeting. I wrote to her back in March to convey the concerns of people in our local area, and she was good enough to arrange this meeting, and I thank her for that. And I thank the Secretary of State and those others who were at the meeting for their time and for their interest, because the CEO of Equinor had actually been on radio the day before I arrived in Norway, telling everyone that no one in Australia had any problems with drilling in the Bight, that it was all going to be tickety-boo. Well, of course, we know the story is very much different to that. So I hope that the Prime Minister of Norway will get that message across to this company, Equinor, which is 67% owned by the Norwegian government, because Norway sort of sells itself as a place that's very democratic and a wonderful place, but there's nothing democratic about the way Equinor went about its study into whether drilling in the Bight should go ahead. We had 31,000 people, including myself, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people from the electorate of Mawson put in submissions, and Equinor ruled out almost all of those 31,000 submissions. So absolutely nothing democratic about that. I've written to the Prime Minister of Norway again today to say that if she wants to leave a blue legacy for Norway, she can't do it if there's a black stain on the coastline of Australia. Now, I was really pleased last week that Bill Shorten has come out and said that if he becomes the Prime Minister of Australia after Saturday's election, that he will call for a full inquiry into the consequences of a spill in the Great Australian Bight. So for people who are going out there to vote on Saturday, remember that Bill Shorten, if he becomes Prime Minister of Australia, will put forward an inquiry into drilling in the Great Australian Bight. So if you want that inquiry to go ahead, you need to get out and vote for Nadia Clancy if you live in Boothby, and for Saskia Gerhardi if you live in Mayo, and you need to vote for the Australian Labor Party in the Senate as well. Good luck to all the Labor candidates on Saturday. Let's hope for a shortened victory.